Welcome to The Tech Branch, live and local here on Super Talk 1270. The latest gadgets, online security, websites and apps, social media, and so much more. How can technology help you? Let's find out. It's time for The Tech Branch on Super Talk 1270.
From our studios in beautiful Mandan, North Dakota, along the mighty Missouri River, here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we are broadcasting from the Gary Thoroldson School of Business here at the University of Mary. We're covering topics like cybersecurity, of course, the Apple versus FBI thing that's been in the news lately. We're also going to talk a little bit about the technology in the classroom. And we'll be joined a little bit later by Carl Sovak. He's the associate professor here at the Gary Thoroldson School of Business. And we may even be graced by an appearance by Dr. John Warford, the Dean of Schools here. Sitting next to me, the founder of Wild Inspire, Mr. Scott Wild. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Marlo. How are you?
Doing fine.
Thanks
as
for
well.
having me back on the show.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we were already at show 400, so I'm kind of your century man.
You are kind of that, yeah. Actually, you're kind of filling in a little bit today. So yeah,
happy to do so.
Yeah. And Jim, how you doing today?
I'm pretty good. I feel like I'm a member of the Brady Bunch sitting here looking at the screen with all these this Hollywood squares of characters.
It kind of is that, isn't it? I could actually kind of reach down. I should have a Diet Coke that we could just reach down through here, and you could grab on the other side. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah,
I think
like
Jim's
that.
More like the butcher of the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Everybody who's not knowing what we're talking about here, we're actually on blab.im this morning from our different locations. So, and Mr. Brian Reinbold's in the room as well. So, if you wanted to jump into blab.im and watch what where we're broadcasting from, you can do that as well. So, Jim.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to change what we talk about when it comes to North Dakota. I'm just saying that if you're wanting a winter getaway, come to North Dakota. Forget Vegas. Forget Arizona.
We're in Las Vegas.
Yeah, get away from winter.
Get away from winter.
Come to North Dakota.
It's unbelievable.
It should be our theme. I mean, 75 degrees, everybody, yesterday. I mean, so those of you across the country who would think that North Dakota is cold in winter, that's not the truth, is it?
I have not fired up my snowblower in 2 years, and I'm not even kidding.
Unbelievable.
We've had a couple of snows that maybe, you just grab a shovel and have a sore back for a day or so. But, I mean, truly, it wasn't even worth pulling out of the shed. I mean, we just have hardly had any snow.
The air conditioner in our house tried to kick on yesterday. I had to go turn it off.
Really?
Yes. So now there's no heat running in the house, which is okay. I mean, it is March after all.
And then you can always get that fresh blast of dust.
Love it,
everything kicks in for the first time.
Of course, one of the last big snows we had was 2 years ago in the first weekend of May. Can happen.
That is true, right? It can happen, yes. But that memory is gone. We are on to spring here, and it certainly feels like it.
Tra-la.
Sure. So
this is about the time that everyone's preparing for the floods.
That's exactly. We don't have any chance of that either this year.
I don't think so.
Unless we get some rain.
Yeah. Or people leave their lawn sprinklers on too long.
Yeah.
Well, they're saying we should be okay this year as far as flooding is concerned.
Yeah, there is.
They're saying they're not expecting any serious problems this year.
Yeah, it should be a great spring to be here in North Dakota. So again, if you want to get away from winter, come to North Dakota.
It's the winter getaway sale.
Anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity today. We were talking a little bit about some of the technology that's being used in the classrooms as well. And of course, we got to get back to the Apple versus the FBI scenario. And Jim and I had quite a lengthy discussion on this a couple of weeks ago. And Scott, what is your take on, and maybe give us a little background first as to what's going on with the fight between Apple and the FBI, and then you and I and Jim can weigh in on this a little bit.
Well, this has to do with the iPhone that was found, and it's supposed that it contains information about potential terrorist activity.
Well, I guess, I don't even know if I'd use the word suppose. They just want to know,
right?
Did this terrorist, this goes back to the California shooting a few months ago. 14 people were killed, and in San Bernardino, that's correct. And they have access to the cell phone, or the FBI does.
Yep.
So they have the cell phone. They want access to it.
Yep. And is there potentially other information on here that is going to link to other potential future events? So it's locked, and they have no way of cracking the encryption on this phone. So they've asked Apple to help them write software that will allow them to access to the hard drive in Apple.
So as an iPhone user, what is the big deal here? I mean, now I'm an Android user, and I can enable, a passcode or whatever on there, but it's kind of an optional thing. With an iPhone, it's not optional, is it?
Right. No. You can absolutely leave the passcode on or off.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
You can have it unsecured, and that there's no problem. But once you have it secured, and they recently even took it to, I know that before I had 4 digits that I would type in. Now I have the option of 6, which is what I'm using.
And I believe you can go to 10 now. You have another, or on, at least on the 6.
I haven't seen that, but the 2 options, I was surprised to see the option now offered the 6 characters, which I think is even more secure.
Well, if you go to 6, I was just, and just like any other password, instead of being able to break it, and a 4-digit one they can break in 5 to 10 minutes if they're able to have access to that, right? 6-digit is 5 to 20 years. So it just gives you that much more security, especially if it's an alphanumerical.
It's the law of exponential.
It's exactly correct.
So, I'm about 50-50 on this, right? So Apple is saying, look, we're not giving this up. This is part of the integrity of our security system. And even though there could be potential issues, or security, they're holding to their guns, and they're saying we're not under any circumstance going to give us up.
Right.
Now, I certainly back that, and I can appreciate that. However, I think that there are, in my personal opinion, I'm about 50-50 on this. I think that there are times, if it's something that deals with national security, that if there is a potential threat on this phone, it's not like they just found someone's iPhone and they're just randomly checking.
Right.
This is someone that was involved in a terrorist activity, right? So the chances of there being other information, maybe there's information about this, some sleeper cells on there or whatever it might be, right? I think that if, we were talking when the mics were off, it's that scenario of if you could cure cancer tomorrow, but you had to kill one person, would you do it, right? And I think this is kind of a parallel to that scenario a little bit. I mean, it's like if you knew that there was potential that people could die if you don't give this information up, does that make it right or does that make it wrong?
So then you pull into the conspiracy theorist type of thing here too. First of all, I have a hard time believing that the FBI really doesn't have a way to get into the phone. I mean, I don't know 100% for sure, but I have a hard time with that, and I think a lot of people do. So why are they making such a big public push with this? And what scares me is we do have a terrorist attack, and of some wherever in the world, right? And they tie that back to information eventually on this phone. Okay,
right.
What does that do to the reputation of Apple?
Exactly. I mean, because as an Apple user, I mean, I'm a fan. I wasn't a fan. I used to hate the Apple snobs, and now I've absolutely become an Apple snob. Everything I have, I mean, I've migrated over almost completely with all of my PCs, and it all started by buying an iPod Touch, and I just fell in love with it. I became enchanted with the product, and so now I have 3 iPads. I have everyone in our family has an iPhone. So there's this engagement level, and there's this passion about the product. But I think that it's one of those things where if I knew that there were terrorist activities that Apple could have stopped by giving this up. Now, again, this is like it's a case-by-case scenario. I absolutely appreciate their point that it's really a hard situation. But I think that in the case of a national security, where you have someone that is linked to a terrorist event, that I think that supersedes, in my opinion, I think that supersedes, and I think that I would actually have more respect for them if they gave.
Okay. All right. I know we've gone long in this segment, everybody. After the break, giving Jim that little heads up there, but after the break, we'll continue our discussion on Apple versus the FBI. So come on back.
Right now, 45.
Super Talk 1270. Home of the Bismarck Bobcats and high school sports. Listen online or anywhere on the Radio Pub app. Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek at Facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or TheTechRanch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank all of our listeners across the country and around the world who follow us on the Blueberry Network, on the Tech Podcast Network, at the Tech It's Here. We're on the Roku, on iTunes, on Tuned In, on Blab, sometimes on Meerkat. we're all over the place.
You are.
So we really appreciate everybody who follows us. Love to have the audience, and excited to have you here. We're broadcasting from the Gary Thoroldson School of Business here at the University of Mary, just south of Bismarck, North Dakota. And we'll have some guests a little bit later on, Carl Slovak and Dr. John Warford, the Dean of the School of Business here, will be joining us. Mr. Scott Wild, founder of Wild Inspire, is sitting next or across the table from me right now. We've been discussing a little bit about Apple versus the FBI. Now I'm going to throw another scenario at you, Scott. Okay, so Samsung, have you heard this about Samsung?
Yes, I know what you're going to say, but go ahead and
all right. So Samsung has just recently, and this isn't really new news, it's just that it recently came to light that in their EULA, their end-user licensing agreement, when you buy a Samsung TV and it's connected to the Internet, they have the ability to listen to you anytime. TV's on, they're able to listen to you. So if you're watching a Doritos commercial and you state something like, I really don't like that flavor of Doritos,
right,
they can gather that information.
Record it.
Now, what they're stating is, of course, they state that they take privacy very seriously, and they just want this for marketing, because I'm assuming sometime in the future, as our TVs become more and more interactive, they will be able to, just like when you're on the Internet now, when you go to a website, then you go to another website, and they cookied you, and you have ads going on there from places you've been or interests that you have. Samsung wants to know your interests as well, so they can tailor-make commercials to you. That's what they're after here. But how comfortable are you that Samsung can be listening to whatever you say in your living room?
See, I'm not comfortable at all. I mean, and I'm not saying anything that I would be afraid of being broadcast. I mean, we're not doing anything illegal in our house. We're not doing anything that, but I think that is crossing the line. Okay. I really, truly do. Because who reads those end-user license agreements, right? Those EULAs are, I mean, there was a company one time that literally put in there, you're going to give us your first child and everything, just so you would sign it.
And nobody came back at them and said, hey, we're not going to do this, right? Nobody read it.
No one read it. So I think that it's not really full disclosure that this is going on. I think that if they had a warning screen that popped up on their TV when you first booted it up that said, look, here's the thing. That's something you'd never forget.
Right.
And just said, or where you could enable or disable.
Right, you can opt into
I don't know
it or whatever.
Anyone would. That's just my personal opinion. I think that's a whole different scenario. I'm not comfortable with it. I don't know what they would possibly use it for. I mean, I suppose if you're watching streaming television, we're all watching Netflix and HBO and all of our shows on the Internet through our TVs.
Right.
I don't even know why we have cable anymore. I really don't. But I suppose that they can tailor it up and say, look, we're going to give this guy Doritos commercials or Bud Light commercials, or whatever that is based on what he said. But again, I mean, I think that is an extreme means to that end. I think there's a violation that I would feel extremely violated if I knew that was going on, and I would no longer buy their products. Samsung. I mean, if I knew that was happening.
So you buy a refrigerator that has this capability in it. So there's the Moni.ai interface that's coming out. It's basically a chip that's going to be put into everything from refrigerators to your light bulb to whatever. And the whole premise behind this is that you can just say, turn my lights on. Or, when you're in your living room, you can say, and granted they have these technologies now, which is interesting. It just made me think of something else. But you can tell your TV to turn on or search for a channel or whatever. You have these technologies now. But the whole idea is that you can at any time tell your to-do list or add something to a calendar as you're in your office or in your home. And it doesn't matter where you're at or if you have your computer on, something's listening.
I think there's a difference, though, when you buy that as a feature of the product, and that is a sellable feature of the product. Now, if I knew that I could speak to my fridge and it would add eggs to my grocery list or whatever, if I bought that as a feature, I think that's a cool feature. And I don't have a problem with that, as long as I could disable it. I don't want my fridge listening to every meal conversation that we have with our kids.
But don't you feel that this is like a hacker's dream come true here? Because the security that's probably going to be put into your refrigerator is a little different than the security that's on your computer or on your phone.
Right. And the thing is that, if we're sitting there and we're all on the Internet and my wife says, hey, what's your password for your computer again? And I say it out loud. Samsung now has my computer password. So, and do I trust everyone that works at Samsung? I don't know anyone that works at Samsung, so the answer is no. I mean, that's I think there is a thing where if I knew that this was a feature of the television, that was sold to me as a feature that it has voice recognition, but it's going to be listening and recording, then if I knew I could tailor my commercials by just yelling at my TV and saying Doritos, I don't like Doritos, or I don't like Bud Light, and I won't see any more of those commercials. If that's a feature that's being sold to me, but I could turn it off, I'm not against that at this point. But I think to hide it inside of an end user license agreement and not have people aware, I think there's a trust factor there.
Sure.
That it really seems like gray hat bordering on black hat versus white hat as a feature. Like, this is going to happen. Oh, by the way, if you want to disable this, here you go. Most applications now will ask you, do you want this application to track your location?
Right.
Sometimes I say sure.
Yep.
And sometimes I'm like, no, I don't want my location being broadcast.
Right. So you think about, I'm thinking on the conspiracy side of things here again. Okay, so how many Samsung TVs have been sold, for example, to the Pentagon and to government officials, and they're hanging on the wall simply because they need a monitor to video conference with people or whatever, and as long as the TV's on, they have the ability to listen. That is really scary stuff.
Well, that's how WikiLeaks and stuff like that gets started, right? You have someone that just happened to have access to this information or leaked it out, and now all of a sudden they're publishing classified documents.
Right.
In there. I think that there is. You're absolutely right. Now the Pentagon probably is reading the end user license agreement, of some sort, or they've invented their own television or something, but I agree with you. How many confidential, HIPAA regulated areas? Everywhere you go inside of every medical office now has large screen TVs. It's digital signage, and we're using them. They have them here. We're sitting under one right now.
Well, it's just one of those things that you don't think about. I'm sure the Pentagon, for example, goes through and they're always sweeping their rooms for bugs and everything else. This is an ingenious way to put a bug in a room that nobody would even think about.
Exactly.
And
then if someone hacks it, which, phones are hacked every day.
Every day.
Now they're just going to hack your television, and they're going to know when you're home, when you're not home. There's something to that too. If you have an 8 to 5 job, I know you're not home Monday through Friday,
right?
8 to 5. And I guess if there's a burglar out there, if they want my stuff, come and get it when my family's not at home.
Right.
That's fine with me.
But it's kind of a breadcrumb type of scenario
because
it's just one more way to piece together your life so that somebody who wants to steal your identity or break into your home or whatever, they have that for you.
Yep. We're just sharing a lot of information that, there's just, how rare is it going to be when I'm actually talking about the commercials on television? So what percentage of that conversation that they now have access to is worth recording? You know what I mean?
Yep.
What are you doing with the other 98% of it?
So if you're concerned about this, what would you do the next time you're going out buying a television?
Well, I think I would read the end user license agreement. I would ask the person selling the television, what its capabilities are. I think you just got to assume that anything, these phones and anything that is a device that has a camera on it and a microphone, that can display an image and can, now the microphone is something that you have to ask.
All right. Everybody, after the break, we'll continue our discussion with the founder of Wild Inspire, Mr. Scott Wild, and we'll continue our discussion on cybersecurity. So come on back.
Right now, 45.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on Super Talk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we're broadcasting from the Gary Tharaldson School of Business here at the University of Mary, just south of Bismarck, North Dakota. And again, if you want to have a getaway from winter, come to North Dakota.
Exactly.
Right now.
You don't even need snow tires.
We're jet skiing, we're fishing, we're rollerblading, we're doing all kinds of great spring things. So get away from winter and come to North Dakota.
Have you seriously seen someone jet skiing?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Absolutely. 2 weeks ago already.
Wow, that's cold water, though.
It's cold water. You have to ignore the 6-foot ice that's sitting on the side of the shore.
Yeah.
But the water is there. Oh, yeah, they've been out kayaking and everything else.
It just proves that not every spinal cord
That would be Scott Weil that said that, everybody. Yeah. Anyway, we're talking a little bit about cybersecurity today at the Gary Thoroltson School of Business, and we may have some special guests that will join us here in a little bit. We've been going over the Apple versus FBI, and of course the Samsung debate with the ability for your TVs now to listen into what is being said while you're watching the television. Now, they claim, of course, that if you're watching a commercial and you don't like the flavor or whatever, that's the information they want. We're kind of spinning this into a whole other scenario. Scott, you recently said earlier in the show about the password thing. That I never even thought about that before. That's
well,
kind of
all
scary.
the conversations that we have that are just around security and our own personal security and the habits that we have. I just think that you're giving someone access that may not.
And you're right.
Have
I mean,
the right to do that.
You probably feel more secure in your home than anywhere else. So I can see where either your kids or your spouse or whatever would ask for a password. If you got some banking information you need to be talking about, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that can be picked up here. It is very scary when you think about it.
Yep, no question.
So, and you were talking about how a person can avoid this from going on. Because if you go buy a TV right now, it's almost impossible to buy a TV that's not connected to the Internet. I mean, it is basically a standard feature. There's probably some out there that still have that option, but I'd say 90% of them have connectivity now.
You have to live from now on with this assumption that every single electronic device you buy,
and when we say everything, we mean everything.
Everything. Your fridge,
your light bulbs.
Your light bulbs. I mean, I just bought, based on something you showed me, I bought my daughter an LED light bulb that's internet connected, and it's Bluetooth connected.
Right.
She can listen to her music through this light bulb and change the color of her room and everything. Well, we got to assume that that's got it's got a microphone, therefore, or a speaker, therefore it's got to have a microphone.
Right.
You can reverse a speaker and go,
oh, yeah.
You just have to assume that you're taking that risk with everything, that it's got some sort of listening capability. Because, we download their app. Well, I don't know everything that's inside that app. I mean, I know that it can change the color of the light bulb or play music now on the light bulb, but I don't know all the code that's in that. We just have to live kind of under that assumption that, most of the stuff that we have has this capability of two-way communication.
Right. So the next time we buy a toaster, you just can't take it for a fact that it's just going to toast bread anymore. And you might think that we're kidding about this, but we really are not.
No.
As we move forward and we become we're becoming a society of the Internet of Things, meaning that everything is going to be connected, and we have these the whole part of this is that it's going to be convenient for us. You might go throw bread in the toaster in the morning, and it knows by the time you're going downstairs that your toast is now toasting for the day and whatever.
Yep.
Whatever that's going to be. So all of our things are going to be connected, and all these things are going to be able to listen to you. I just don't know how you combat this, I guess, when I'm thinking about it. There has to be a way, I would imagine.
It's just awareness. I truly think that the way you combat this is awareness of what is the capabilities, and we need to make sure that we're reading, now the end-user license agreements that just give away some of these securities, because legally now they have covered themselves. If they record it and we're offended, we can't take them to court because we bought the television and we set it up and we connected it to the Internet. They told us exactly what they were going to do.
Right.
I just think that there needs to be a little bit more transparency on the front end of that indicates exactly what this is going to do in some sort of a visual mode, because nobody's reading these ridiculous documents that they're giving us.
Well, I think in general it's prudent just to assume it's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to assume, our whole life has become a Yakov Smirnoff joke. Television watches you. But I think we have to kind of make ourselves over to that. Realistically, it's we're not going back to Walton Mountain anytime soon.
So do you think, if we're going to say something like a password or something in our home, that we should just write it down and give it to somebody so that, critical information like that should not be taken for granted anymore?
I think, yes. I mean, that would, if you can get yourself into that mindset, but I think we're dealing with paradigms that are so ingrained that we are not, this is going to take a while for people to be cognizant of this all the time.
Yeah.
Because I have my iPad, my phone, and everything with me almost all the time.
Right.
We watch television with our phones in our lap and our iPads, and so we're, in commercials, we're surfing, and so I think that there's a paradigm there that will be hard to get over, but yes, that would ultimately be maybe the the rule of thumb is that you never speak your password aloud, so it can't ever be picked up. But then at some point, the television, if it's, maybe it has video capability and it can, character recognize, OCR, what you wrote on a piece of paper, or take a picture of it, or everything's.
So, Jim, what's your thought on this? I mean, would this impact the way that you go buy a television, for example?
Well, I'm not sure it's worth the effort to go out of my way to find a TV that won't potentially be looking back at me.
Okay.
Like I say, at this day and age, we have to assume it's everywhere. Maybe we should, I hate to sound fatalistic about this, but maybe we just need to make ourselves over to this new Orwellian reality. If there's cameras in the bathroom, then, learn to urinate with style, I guess. I don't know.
Jim, there's your first book.
Oh, yes.
How to.
With a little flair, a little je ne sais quoi, as it were. A bit of panache.
Jim, I'll buy the first copy of that book.
All right.
Right now, I am just stretching my imagination to figure out how I would do that.
Yeah, you don't have to read and just look at the pictures.
Oh, my goodness. I don't even have anything to say in a comeback for that. That's crazy. But anyway.
So, kids, the takeaway from today's show.
Oh, my goodness. All right, Jim. Well, thanks. Thanks for your input. Scott, I mean, is this going to impact the way you purchase products?
No, because I'm so engulfed in technology that it's just one of those where I know, and hopefully it's telling me. I'm just maybe a little more aware that it's going on right now. But no, I mean, I just know that we're immersed in it, and I don't think we're going to get away from it. I did a presentation to a bunch of high school students last week, and one of the things I told them is there's not a minute of your life that isn't being captured on film somewhere. And I even pointed up to the corner of the gym where there was a video camera.
Right.
And I said, you're just on camera. You just have to assume that you're on camera. And even when you're walking outside, you're on a security camera, you're on a satellite camera, you're on something that is recording.
I think you have to assume if somebody wants to check out what you're doing, they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Whether you buy the right TV or not.
Yeah, that's this generation's challenge is that, they are leaving digital footprints with every single text they post, but also every action they do because they're being captured by somebody. And if they're not the ones taking the selfie or their friends are, someone across the street is taking a photo if they're goofing off or it's on video somewhere and we're using it as evidence. So, I mean, again, it's just it's an awareness and it's a mindset that...
I mean, you think about the news and you watch the news some evening or whatever. It's amazing. We have an event that goes on somewhere in the country or around the world.
Sure.
They usually figure out a way to get some footage of it.
Well, we're stepping forward because we are on-the-ground journalists, right?
Right, that's correct.
Recently there was a fight at Kirkwood Mall. There were no news reporters there with cameras, but guess what? It's on film, and someone shared that immediately with the news, and they're using that as evidence to bring charges.
Absolutely.
So you just have to assume that any actions that we're doing now, if you're, especially when you're in a crowd, but even when you're alone, you just never know where someone got it.
The other day, we passed the 25th anniversary of the Rodney King incident.
Sure.
Which I think for a lot of folks is where this all got started. And we all know what happened there.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, the point there, there's an interesting point there, is that the authorities also have to worry about us looking back at them.
Yeah, and that is going on, of course, more and more all the time as well. And they're dealing with that new reality as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see the mob mentality, right? And if there's a scene going on and the cop cars pull up and they're addressing someone in a vehicle, 3 or 4 of the people are recording this on film because they don't know if there's going to be a shootout or a high-speed chase.
Right.
I mean, but they're going to capture this for their own process.
Well, that's why the dash cams are so widely used by police departments. The police will tell you they're using it for their own protection.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, and dash cams are not very popular yet in the United States, but in Europe, extremely popular. And I would imagine sooner or later that will be a very popular tool to have in your vehicle as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, in our vehicles, we'll probably, think about the car-to-car communication now. The vehicles are sensing other cars. Well, at some point, there's going to be, there's going to be some sort of a camera enabled that, so they can record what's going on around you. and that way, if you're in an accident, they, like, well, you got footage of it. I mean, I think we're going to be at that point sometime if we aren't already.
Right. After the break, everybody, we'll continue our conversation with the producer extraordinaire, Jim Walsh, and founder of Wild Inspires, Scott Wild. Come on back.
Right now, 50.
But Jim Bohannon Show is here. Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
We're back, guys. Hello.
Let us know that, Jim. Yeah, we're having such a conversation here on our side. Yeah.
I disappeared, but I don't know where I went.
There's enough going on in the side conversations that it makes me
you should be. That's right. You should join us on blab.im. So
yeah.
Catch us first.
Let me bring it back up again.
Joining us at our studio here at the University of Mary Gary Tharaldson School of Business, Mr. Carl Sovak. Carl, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Sorry for the delay. It's advising week here, Marlo.
It's only live radio, so it's okay.
I thought I could come and go as I please.
So we're talking a little bit about cybersecurity. You just actually came back from a conference in Israel. So why don't you tell us about the premise of the conference and what you took away from it?
That was an incredible place. There were a variety of different speakers from different places, and I'm here to tell you that, Benjamin Netanyahu spoke, the prime minister, and to be in that audience, seeing the way that it is. But in Israel, they take cybersecurity very, very seriously. So this was a gathering of a number of people from hundreds of different places to try and help and assist people with their cyber threats.
Okay.
And it was amazing, and I shared this with you off the air, but I'll share it with the individuals here. One of the things that they said was the most egregious thing that happened. We've had power grids that go out, so loss of productivity. We've had loss of lives in some cases, loss of money in other cases. And they said the most egregious things that happened in the tech world were two things: the Ashley Madison hack and the Sony hack. And they said that the reason that these are so egregious was people's reputations were on the line. And that's what's happening with businesses now. Businesses' reputations are being put on the line. And you take a look at Target, the amount of money that they've lost, and they won't recover. They won't recover that. You won't get that new generation of people because they'll always have this fresh in their mind for the next 3 or 4 years till the next hack of Walmart or somebody comes through. Right?
And of course, what's interesting about that is that even though Target got the blame for it, it really was their card processor that actually was at fault, correct?
Right, absolutely. But again, it's the brand that really takes the hit. And that's the thing. So when you're looking at this, you're not just looking at your brand, but you're looking at your reputation and how long is it going to take you to get back. They were estimating that even if you get all the malware and everything out of there, that it still takes you almost 3 years to fully recover from just that one attack. And that's just to get you back to the point where you were, right? So if you think about that, we're talking about mitigation and things like that in this day and age. Cybersecurity is a real issue. I think there's a lot of companies that aren't aware. The way they explained it was you have people coming into your home. They're intruders in your home. You have no idea that they're there. You're in a refrigerator. They're in another room, and you never cross paths. And then sooner or later, they just pack up and they leave. You didn't know they were there. You didn't know they left. And all of a sudden, things start happening. Things start missing. And that's what happens with our security systems as well. They get in. They mess around with things, and then they invade when they want to invade. And now ransomware is the big thing. And you have banks that are being held hostage.
Why don't you explain about that a little bit? Because the ransomware that you and I deal with individually is a little bit differently than what banks are dealing with. So explain that a little bit.
Yeah, there was a bank that actually paid $17,000 to get their system back up. They got the blue screen of death, and they got the threat that, hey, if you want this information back, you need to pay us this amount of money in Bitcoins to this account. And they actually weighed it and said, hey, the amount of money that we're losing on an hourly basis, it's much more beneficial for us to do that. 17,000 Bitcoin was transferred. They got their system back up, and they said it's the most efficient way for them to get going again. It's crazy. And so in the business world, from a personal, we look at it and say, this is crazy. I'm not going to pay that. From the business world, every minute almost is money that's being lost in terms of productivity. So they can't afford to be without their systems. And So they're trying to do a better job, of detecting things and even preventing things from coming in there. But this sheet that I have in front of me, 205 billion emails are sent, and that's where 77% of the malware comes in. Just the emails that come through, not the attachments, the emails that come through. So when the email comes through, it's already invading into your system when you open that email, and it could be coming from a friend. You could get something from me, and it could be embedded with that. Going into a business, that's what they're trying to prevent and mitigate is those things. So it's an amazing world out there. They said that the individuals that are actually hacking are much more unified and concentrated and collaborating than people who are defending, right? People who are defending want to kind of control their own little technology and their own little competitive advantage that they have. They don't share the information that they have. The attackers are out there sharing, hey, do you know how I got into this company? Do you know how I got into this company? Do you know how to do this? They're out there sharing this information. So it's an incredible, well-organized crime.
In fact, it is so well organized that in some countries, they actually recruit employees to help them out, and those employees get benefits.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. They're getting paid a wage and benefit so they can help them hack into companies and personal computers.
And that was the other thing that they shared is it's not the individual, like if you knew how to do this, Marlo, you said, hey, I don't want to be attached to this, but I'll show you how. They actually teach classes on how to hack into different places so that you can do this and do this criminal activity and not even have it traced back to me. And so I share that, and you pay me to share that with you, and then they go in there and they reap 10, 100, 300 times what they would pay me to learn that information.
Right. Yeah, it's a scary world out there when you think about this. So what are some common sense things that maybe you took back from the summit that a person or a business can do to protect themselves?
Well, I know, I've been visiting with some people in the cyber industry that are doing this, and they said, a lot of people are saying that it's just too much money. You cannot spend enough money on protecting yourself, and then you can't spend enough to try and mitigate what happens when it's going in there. So when there are these companies that are talking about these threats, you need to really listen to them because the things that are happening, multi-millions of dollars of loss in some of these, even just smaller companies. And if you think, well, I'm too small and I can't afford this, you're too small and you can't not afford to do something. So listen to these individuals that are coming to you with these solutions to some of the issues because you never know from what area you're going to be attacked. And these individuals at least have a little bit of a chance to help prevent. And if you can't prevent, then again, it goes into the mitigation side of things. Prevention is one of the big things that are out there, and people say, well, I've got firewalls and I've got these things. That's not the greatest prevention that's out there. So just be open to these individuals who are talking about cybersecurity, talking about cyber threats, and understand, yes, they have a product to sell, but it's a very viable product. I mean, it's not even insurance. Insurance is, the chance of something happening. You're trying to mitigate that. This is just a normal way of doing business anymore if you're going to be on the web.
So are there any type of, before you joined us today, we were talking a lot about the Apple versus the FBI, also about Samsung's TVs and other TVs that are out there where they're listening to us now, right? So are there equipment choices, and I'm thinking about this in particular the Chinese routers and things like this that we purchase now that probably have things in them, even though you have a firewall that's in place, they have a backdoor that they built into the equipment already. I mean, are there reputable companies that we can buy things through, or are there ways that we can test this equipment before we even put it in place?
That's a great thing when you're talking about that is that you have to take a look at these companies or these countries that we're doing business with. China, of course, has such a distrust of the United States simply because of the things that we've done, and a lot of European Union countries have a lot of issues with us as well. Your trusted companies and your trusted countries that are doing things. Israel is way ahead of the things that we're doing on here. You have to really work with your allies, right? I mean, that's where we are right now, is understand where this software comes from, who's doing it. That's really where your best protection comes from. And if they're not really an ally and you're trying to get it cheaper, there's going to come a cost that comes associated with that. And I think that's one of the things that you really have to weigh is where is this information coming from, who's doing it, what's the company. All of those things come into that. So you're absolutely right, is that there's a lot of software that comes embedded, either with that backdoor to allow them to come through. But again, it's the reputation of the country and the company that you're doing business with goes a long way. And again, I'm a big proponent of Israel just because I see what they're doing, and I see the type of threat that they constantly live with.
So any last thoughts maybe on the summit? What really stood out maybe?
Again, just Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister speaking. You have a country that is surrounded by individuals and other countries that have a disdain for the Israeli nation and what they're doing to protect themselves. And as he said, you're either with us or against us. And I'm pretty confident that Israel is well ahead in the technological field in terms of what we need to do to protect ourselves.
Okay, Scott, on the buying technology side, I mean, are there any choices that maybe you can think of about how a person, maybe some common sense approach to protect yourself?
Well, one of the things that, as far as buying the technology, look for reputable dealers, and that goes what Carl was saying is that when you are looking for security solutions, you got to go to reputable companies that have a reputation and ask what they would provide. You're going to get lots of pop-ups on your computer that say, we can secure your computer, and all of a sudden you click on it, and they're going to have you uninstall and install their software, and basically you're being scammed. And it's happened to even my parents a couple times.
Sure.
And it's to the tune of about $900.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, and it's prominent, and these people think these are reputable companies or that's part of the computer software. Well, once someone clicks on malware on the computer, like Dr. Slovak was saying, that this is the problem. You've already opened the door, and you're going to get all kinds of imitations. But no bank is ever going to ask for your password. They got to know about phishing. They got to know, it's awareness.
All right, Scott, pleasure as always. Carl, pleasure too. And remember, everybody, if you need a getaway from winter, come to North Dakota. We'll see you again next week.
You've been listening to The Tech Ranch, live and local on Super Talk 1270. Keep ahead of the trends. Tune in every Monday morning at 11 a.m. for The Tech Ranch. Exclusively here on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
ABC News, Super Talk 1270. Accurate news, stimulating talk. This is KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck.